Okay, so we did the Fibonacci sequence here and named that. I've talked a little bit about the general use of the spreadsheet. What we're going to do next is we're going to create a new sheet. The way you do that, you can go down here and click Add Sheet. You want to immediately rename it. We're going to rename it MC Grader. Because the deal is, one of the earliest ways that I ever, as a teacher, discovered a use for spreadsheets was back in the day when I was teaching biology and they allowed your test to be all multiple choice. I would make up these multiple choice tests and I would put them on Scantron. We'd scan them, I'd scan them, and it would tell me the number correct that they got on a test. So like if it were a 50 question test, then 50 would be the most that anyone could possibly get correct. So that's basically the parameter that I would then use to create a table where I could assign their grade. Now, if it were 50 questions, obviously this would be easy. Their grade would be 100% if they got 50. If they got any less than that, the least amount they could get less would be 50 minus 1. By the way, I want to point out, I'm not sure I mentioned this last video, but after you hit the equal sign, you actually don't have to type in B3 to indicate the cell B3. You can literally, while the equal sign is there, you can actually click on the cell that you want the reference to entered into the cells whose formula you're writing. And this makes it much easier. That way you don't really have to look, oh, is it B3, is it C2, is it C3, whatever. You just click on it. So I like it. I say, make this cell equal to, hit the equal sign, that one, I click it, minus 1. And then I type that. And you'll often hear me speak in those kinds of terms when I'm showing you how I create a spreadsheet. So this cell is equal to the cell above minus 1, which would be 49. And then obviously that pattern would continue downward. So 48, 47, 46. What's great about this is if I had to throw a question out from the test, rather than just giving everybody 2 percentage points, which I wouldn't like to do because you didn't really earn it, is I would just change the number possible correct to 49 and it would adjust downward. So the idea is this number here, the maximum number correct, is the only parameter that guides the entire grading sheet. Now I'm actually going to skip down here to this spot, and I'm going to keep 50 for now to talk about the calculation, the formula that I need in this cell. Again, it'll be a formula, so I'm going to type equals. And it's going to be the numerator of a division, which will be the number they got correct, divided by the maximum number possible on the test, which will be that cell. So B8 divided by B3 will be, for this particular location, they got 45 out of 50 right. That's 0.9. I'm going to actually not do the autofill yet. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So 0.9, which is 90%. So we're going to go up here. We're going to change the format of this cell to 90. And I actually do want 2 decimal places. It happened to end up with 2 decimal places. If I wanted 3, I'd click that to get 3. If I only wanted 1, I'd click that to get only 1 decimal place. But I wanted as 2 decimal places. That's what I put in my grade book. Now, so this formula is beautiful. It's working. It's great. However, this is the new thing, differs from Fibonacci. If I were to drag this upward, I would actually end up with an error. And the reason why, if you think about it, is because when you copy by dragging, it changes the cell references to be relative. So when I'm down here, I want the one that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells up, B3, to be my denominator. And I want my numerator to be the cell right next to it, so that when I look this up, I'll just find the number that got correct over here, and I know what number to put in the grade book there. But if I drag that upward, B8 is going to change to B7, which means that's still going to be correct. But B3 is going to change to B2. We're going to try to divide by something that's not even a number. And of course that gives us an error. This is how you know you've got an error in a cell. It has a hashtag and it gives you some idea what's wrong. If you hover over it, it tells you function divide parameter to expect number values, but number correct is text and cannot be coerced into a number. Oh, I like that word coerced there. It's kind of amusing. Bottom line is, yeah, the denominator of this is wrong when I drag it up. I need a way, I'm going to hit delete here by the way, I need a way when I'm writing this formula to force B3 to stay as B3. I don't want that 3 changing. I want this denominator to always be the cell right there at B3. I don't want it to change to B2 or B1 as I drag this upward, nor do I want it to change to B4 or B5 as I drag it downward. So the way, and this is key, the way you change a cell reference from relative, based on its location, to absolute, where it cannot change, is the use of dollar signs. So I'm going to put a dollar sign there and a dollar sign there. And what that does is that means when I drag this around to copy it, the B will not change and the 3 will not change. That every place I put this, it will always make the reference be, for the denominator, B3. The numerator can still change, but the denominator will not. So now if I do that, I can click and drag this upward, and it gives me the correct values. And double click it to go downward, and it gives those correct values. So this worked. If you look right here, the denominator, let me double click on that. The denominator is B3. If I click here, the denominator is $B, $3. If I click here, the denominator is $B, $3. The denominator did not change relative to where I put this formula, but the numerator did. So this is the real, now we're getting to the super powerful capabilities of a spreadsheet. We can write formulas that allow some things to change in the formula and other things to remain the same. So this really works. And what's great about this is, this is something I did when I was, like I said, first teaching biology, and I gave all multiple choice questions test. If I had to throw out a question, all I had to do is go to this page, change that to 49, and now somebody got 45 right would get a 91.84 because they actually got a greater percent of the questions right. They got 45 out of 49 rather than 45 out of 50. Every time, if I gave a 60 question test, boom, here's all the grades for 60 question test. If I gave a 70 question test, if I gave a 100 question test, I liked using 100. Oops, wait, I did something wrong there. Control Z. So I double clicked on something. If I gave a 70 question test, oh my gosh, I can't seem to type right now. Let's put 70. If I gave a 70 question test, there are all the possible responses. So that's how you make a multiple choice grading routine. It's using a lot of the same ideas from the Fibonacci, where we're writing formulas using cell references. We know how to write them. We know how to refer to things. We're still seeing when we double click on a formula, it's showing us a preview of, or a color-coded idea of what the formula is referring to. But now we know how to use absolute references. This, where you put the dollar signs in, these are called absolute references. They are not relative. They don't change as you move from place to place around the spreadsheet. Our next lesson will be just one step beyond this. As you might notice, I put a $B, $3. The 3 had to remain the same. As I drag this up and down, it would try to change the 3. But since I was only dragging this up and down, the B really wasn't going to change anyway. And I'll show you this. I can actually leave that dollar out prior to the B, and I still have a formula. Oops, didn't do that quite right. I still have a formula that I can click and drag and it will work. And the reason is I'm only dragging it up and down, so only the numerical, the row part of the references would change by putting the dollar sign there. The row part doesn't change. The only reason the column part doesn't need a dollar sign is because I'm not dragging this sideways. If you drag something sideways, then you would find that the letter portion, the column references, change each time. But in this particular instance, it didn't matter. So I could have written this equation either $B, $3 in the denominator, or just $B, $3 in the denominator. Similarly, I could put a $sign here. It's not going to matter as long as I'm still dragging straight up and down. B is the column to my left from this cell. So putting a $sign there, if I drag it up and down, it's not going to change it one way or the other. So I'll illustrate that to you as well right now. Just drag this up, no effect. So what happens when you don't just drag up and down? You drag left and right, or most importantly, both left and right and up and down. We answer that in the next lesson. Be sure to watch that one. It will be, I think, lesson 3 now. I'm not sure. Anyway, thanks.